Welcome to the Total Warhammer Fighting Championships, brought to you by Game Chambers. I am your host Chris, and today we have a middleweight exhibition match between Prince Tyrion, Defender of Ulthuan, and Taurox the Brass Bull, two mighty champions from either side of the mortal empires. Prince Tyrion, heir of Anarion, Dragon of Cathig, Champion of the Everqueen, and Defender of Ulthuan, is the greatest living High Elven warrior from Ulthuan, and arguably the greatest warrior in the entirety of the mortal empires. It was he who banished the greater demon Nakari at the Phoenix Shrine, and it was he who slew Urian Poisonblade upon Finuval Plain. Tyrion, along with his twin brother Teclis, is descended from the Phoenix King Anarion, the greatest elven warrior to ever live. The twins were blessed by the elven god Assyrian early in their lives, and thus marked by the hands of destiny for great deeds. Together they travelled to Lustria to obtain Tyrion's sword Sunfang. This sword was forged in the early days of Anarion's rule to slay demons and burns with the fires of a captured sun. The dragon armour of Anarion was forged on Vorl's anvil by Calidor Dragontamer for Anarion himself, and lost when he perished in battle. The armour was recovered and repaired by Tyrion's father, Aratheon, with the aid of Teclis and Sunfang. The dragon armour of Anarion amplifies the physical strength of the wearer, and is enchanted with layers of protective magics that turn away harm. Aratheon gifted the armour to Tyrion on the eve of the Battle of Finuval Plain. Tyrion's final artifact is the Heart of Avalon, gifted to the Champion of the Everqueen by Alarielle herself. This heart-shaped ruby brooch is woven with enchantments that protect the bearer from death by shattering and restoring his life. Our other combatant is Taurox the Brass Bull, sometimes known as Slaughterhorn, the Blood Beast, or the Brazen One. He is a Minotaur chieftain that has been blessed by the Dark Gods for the destruction that he sowed across Talabecland. Cursed by a Chaos Emissary in its death throes, Taurox slew his entire tribe of Minotaurs and raged across the lands for a year and 1 day, slaying men, ogres and giants throughout the Empire. At the end of his rampage, he lay exhausted in a river of blood, but the Dark Gods were not done with the Brass Bull. Under a scarlet moon they granted Taurox a gift, a shining body of metal. With his new body, Taurox became known as the Brass Bull and would no longer tire so long as he continued to rampage and slake his rune-inscribed axes with blood. Today's match will take place in the city of Lothern in the Grand Courtyard. There is no time limit, and competitors are free to use any and all abilities available to them to defeat each other. The battle must remain within the courtyard, and fighters can only disengage for a maximum of 15 seconds. As a middleweight match, the fighters need to weigh in at less than 2,500 points each before the match, and they can bring any mounts, items or spells up to this limit. Let's take a look at how their statistics and abilities compare in-game. We can see how these two characters compare on screen. Taurox the Brass Bull has significantly more health than Tyrion, who will be mounted on Melandia for this fight. Taurox also has slightly more armour. You can see on the resistances, Tyrion actually has a 45% fire resistance, which will actually be pertinent in this fight, as Taurox the Brass Bull does fire damage. Tyrion also has much higher combat statistics, with a melee attack of 75 compared to Taurox's 53, and a melee defense of 60 compared to Taurox's 47. Taurox does hit a lot harder though, so when he does connect, he will do a significantly more damage. The main difference between these two characters is going to be their abilities. So if we have a look at Tyrion's abilities, he has access to Foe Seeker. This is a very basic ability that it just increases his speed, but it also restores some of his vigor. He also has access to Stand Your Ground. This will raise his melee defense and his leadership. Boost of melee defense of 24 will make a significant difference to Tyrion. That will boost him to 84 melee defense with his base defense, and if his martial mastery is active, it will actually boost him to a 96. He has access to Feint and Riposte. This is a self-augment as well, has a 28-second duration and a 90-second cooldown. It gives him a significant boost to his melee attack, his melee defense, and a 20% physical resistance. He has access to the Heart of Avalon. This will give him a life-saving burst of hit points and restore 1,872 health if his health drops below 20%. This is a one-use only item and could potentially save Tyrion's life. Now over to Taurox. The Brass Bull has a passive known as Blood Greed. This charges up over 60 seconds of battle, and once it is active, remains active for the rest of the battle. This gives him a boost to his melee attack, his charge bonus, his leadership, and makes him immune to psychology. Slaughterer's Call, which is always active any time that he is engaged in melee. This boosts his melee attack, his charge bonus, and his leadership. he has access to an ability called Blood Beast. This does very insignificant fire damage. It also lowers the leadership of the target. And he also has access to the Brass Body. This is a very significant steroid for the Brass Bull. It lasts for 41 seconds, gives him an additional 24 melee defense and 40% resistance to all damage. The downside of the Brass Body is it has a 2-minute cooldown. Tyrion's abilities are on a much shorter cooldown, so this gives him the potential to have his steroids available more during the fight. And finally, Taurox also has the Rune Tortured Axes. These will take 90 seconds of combat to charge. However, once they have fully charged, Taurox will have an additional 10 melee attack and plus 15% to all his damage. This could boost his statistics high enough to potentially get through Tyrion's higher defenses. We can only wait and see how this performs. So now, with that all said, we shall see how these two combatants come together in Lothern in their one-on-one battle. And now it's time. Taurox versus Tyrion in Lothern. Taurox is on the left-hand side of the screen. Tyrion is on the right. Two combatants charge on in. Tyrion spurs Melandra in. Taurox comes in with a beautiful rolling charge, activating Brass Body of the Slaughterer's Call. Tyrion activates Stand Your Ground and Feint and Riposte. Taurox takes an early lead with a nice blow against Tyrion. Two of them square off in the courtyard, and Taurox with another blow there, managing to get through Tyrion's enhanced melee defense through both Master Mastery, Stand Your Ground, and Feint and Riposte. The edge of ground drops and Tyrion's defense goes back down, so we'll give Taurox a chance to try and get a bit of damage onto the Prince of Ulthuan. He still manages to avoid all the blows at Feint and Riposte, and Martial Mastery is still keeping him in it. Feint and Riposte wears off. Tyrion falls back to try and reset his charge bonus. Comes back around for another charge. Taurox with a beautiful rolling charge, doing nice damage there to Tyrion. Starts to bully the Prince. Tyrion's Foe Seeker wears off, but as does Taurox's Brass Body. This will mean his resistances is now a lot lower, and Tyrion will be able to get a lot more damage onto the Brass Bull. Taurox using his sheer size to try and push Tyrion around, but taking a massive amount of damage in return. Two of them continue to trade blows in the courtyard. Tyrion decides to fall back, trying to get another reset on that charge bonus. Goes to loop around, cuts across in front of the Brass Bull as Taurox comes charging in and misses with the rolling charge. Tyrion narrowly missing that and gets his charge bonus with a massive blow on Taurox as he comes in. Slaughterer's Call is active on Taurox. Bloodgreed kicks in. He's been in combat long enough and he gets a massive blow on Tyrion, knocking him out of Martial Mastery. With Bloodgreed active and Martial Mastery gone, this now gives Taurox a chance to try and get some damage on Tyrion. He bullies the Prince, pushes him back. The two have a bit of a stare down. A few blows missing back and forward. Nice double-handed swing there from Taurox, but doesn't land damage. Pushes Tyrion back, forcing him away from the center of the battlefield. Tyrion activates Foe Seeker, trying to avoid the fatigue from the battle. If he can remain fresh while Taurox becomes tired, that gives him another advantage. Stand Your Ground comes back up. Taurox is now going to struggle to land any more blows on the Prince, but he gets a nice one there. Manages to return it in kind though. Taurox pushing Tyrion back towards the edge. Melandra takes a bit of a blow. Tyrion decides to fall back as Foe Seeker and Stand Your Ground wear off. Looks like he may be waiting on cooldowns here. Feint and Riposte is probably nearly back up again. Taurox probably still has a little bit to wait on the Brass Body. Tyrion comes in just as Feint and Riposte comes back online with another charge. Taurox gets a massive blow on Tyrion, even through the enhanced defenses of Feint and Riposte. Tyrion gets pushed back from the sheer size of Taurox, but manages to land a couple more blows in quick succession. Taurox is not looking good here. One more blow and Tyrion will have this fight in the bag. Feint and Riposte still active. Taurox is trying hard. He's trying to land a few blows here on Tyrion. Prince is not phased at all.
Annihilate them!
And Tyrion brings down Taurox. Our winner is Prince Tyrion of Ulthuan. Well, there we have it. Tyrion has come out on top. Now, some people may have predicted this based purely upon Tyrion's fire resistance, and that is true. The fire resistance is a significant factor in this battle. Lowering Taurox's damage by 45% does give Tyrion a decent advantage. However, on a raw statistics standpoint, Tyrion does have less hit points than the Brass Bull and doesn't hit as hard. So there was still the potential for Taurox to take this fight away. Where it came down to, I believe, is the fact that Tyrion's abilities are on a lower cooldown. You'll notice in the battle that Tyrion managed to activate Feint and Riposte a second time, while Taurox still had the brass body on cooldown. Tyrion was also able to make use of his superior mobility, that whenever his melee defense steroids were offline, he was able to disengage from the brass bull and try and reset his charge bonus. His charge bonus also being significantly higher than Taurox's. So the fact that he was more mobile and had higher statistics is what led him to be able to win that fight. Even though his steroids were not as powerful, they were up more often and he had more of them available. For Taurox to win this fight, he would need to have a bit of luck on his side, and he would need to try and disengage from Tyrion whilst Tyrion was running Feint and Riposte, and potentially even disengage whilst Stand Your Ground was active. If anyone has any feedback on how this battle went, or if you would like to see more of these battles, please give me some suggestions down below who you would like to see match up in the future. If we have significant interest, I will kick off the Total Warhammer Fighting Championships, and we'll have different weight classes, we'll put different characters in those weight classes, and then I'll put it down to a public vote which characters you would like to see face off against each other, and then after a while, if it picks up even more interest, we might even hold championships and titles and try and make a bit of a spectacle of them all. Please give me a subscribe and a like down below, and let me know who you would like to see fighting. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.